Hi guys. Hello. I'm back for another week of Astrology 101. Hello. Yeah, I missed you guys last week. We were up at the trade show, so I'm back. I'm Danielle from Amityville Apothecary. Hi guys. This week we are going to be talking about Neptune as the planet and just talking about like what it's in charge of and why it matters in terms of astrology. These classes are designed to just be, really basic foundational classes for the core tenets of astrology, so that once you understand the basics of astrology, then you can layer on top and dive up. Oh, you love how I layered my necklaces? Thank you. So I have my traditional shamrock, but this is a brand new one. We're going to be talking about what this is. This is made by Meraki Rame, but we partnered with them because this is a lunar meteorite. So this is a piece of the moon, which is really amazing. So when there's an asteroid or something that collides with the moon, it can sometimes break off pieces and then it comes down to the earth. And then this was found in Africa. And then Meraki Rame mounted it. And we're going to be selling this. I know, I love them. So I just got this in today. So the energy is amazing. It's very high vibration and I love it. It does add a little razzle-dazzle, but it's subtle. It's so funny because Dina has one that's made in gold, which we'll also talk about. But I was just immediately drawn to the one she was wearing today. And she's like, by the way, yours is here too. So stay tuned for that. During our story sales and our live sales, we'll be talking about it. So yes, I am actually wearing a piece of the moon and it feels great. But today we are talking about Neptune, the planet of Neptune, which is one of the outer planets. And when we deal with the outer planets in astrology, it relates to, here's a picture of a very bad picture, but because it's dark, but that's Neptune. It's a cold, gaseous planet. So Neptune is in Sagittarius. Your Neptune is in Sagittarius. Yes, my Neptune is in Sagittarius as well. So we'll talk about what that means, because when we deal with the outer planets, that means they are very, very far and outside the ability to see that planet from Earth with your naked eye. So it was discovered in 1846 with the use of a telescope, and Neptune actually takes 165 years to orbit the sun. So that is a really long time. So it spends about 14 years in each sign. So within that 14 years, every year it goes retrograde for a period of about 6 months. So we'll talk about what that means. But think about it. Neptune is so far, it takes 165 years to make a complete circle throughout all 12 of the zodiac signs. That's a really long time. Right now, it is in the sign of Pisces. So everybody right now currently is feeling the energy of Neptune in Pisces. And it's actually in retrograde. So before I get into what that means from a retrograde perspective, I'll talk about some keywords of what Neptune as a planet means in terms of astrology and what that means in terms of like what it's in charge of. And its symbol looks like King Triton's trident. So yes, it is named after the god of water. So the associated keywords with Neptune is the planet of magic, spirituality, and creativity. Spirituality, fantasy, dreams, art, mysticism, illusion, but also deception, escapism, and imagination are all associated with the planet of Neptune. So what it represents within you as it relates to like your natal chart. So if you look up your natal chart, like mine is Neptune in Sagittarius, same thing with Monica, it represents your imagination as well as your mystical and spiritual side. And then what it represents in life, so right now, Neptune being in Pisces, it represents global artistic interests, illusions, potential scandals, religion, and spirituality. And all of those themes definitely ring true as I was taking down my notes and thinking about what's happening in life. So the planet of Neptune does rule it rules Pisces, the zodiac sign Pisces. So if you think about the traits of Pisces, those are very similar traits that correspond with Neptune. So it represents spirituality, dreams, one's psychic ability, your intuition, disintegration, we'll talk about that, compassion, self-sacrifice, deception, and delusion. So with any planet, with any sign, with any house, with any term related to astrology as well as metaphysics, there's positive attributes and potential downside attributes that you have to be cautious of. So that's where the cautious side with the planet of Neptune is it can lead to like blurred lines and fuzziness and illusion and deception as well as escapism. So a cautionary tale of Neptune is you have to be careful of potential addictions. So Neptune has been in Pisces, the sign of Pisces, since 2011, 2012. Remember, since it's so far and so distant, it's not like an exact, everything's exact mathematically, but since 2011, 2012, Neptune moved into the sign of Pisces, and it remains there until 2025, 2026, okay? So right now, from June 30th until December 3rd, that is a retrograde period for the planet of Neptune. So let's see, right here, this is the current energy of Neptune. Neptune is the planet of imagination, spirituality, and faith, and it spends approximately 14 years in each sign. With Neptune in Pisces, the energy of Neptune will be amplified in a significant way because Neptune and Pisces, it's in its natural house. Hi, Jar Jelly. Hi, everybody that's on. We're talking about astrology, and today's lesson is on Neptune. So these notes continue to say there will be a greater emphasis on all things mystical and imaginative, and spirituality will be embraced collectively on a deep level. Being an owner of a metaphysical shop, I definitely can say there has been a heightened awareness and adoption of incorporating these types of themes and tools and principles and topics into one's everyday life, more so than in the past. So I think collectively that definitely does ring true. So as I was mentioning before, when misused, this energy could lead to escapist tendencies, but for the most part, the energy will elevate compassion in society to a high level of unconditional love and understanding. So Neptune is like, it's a water sign. Pisces, you know, it's watery and deals with emotions and compassion for others. So that is gentle about it. But, you know, it's the last sign. Its correspondence with Pisces, it's the last sign in the zodiac wheel. So as we look at Neptune as being a highly spiritual and mystical planet and what it's in charge of, we have to be careful with that energy because we can have all these beautiful dreams and ideas and enlightened aha moments, but as humans here on Earth, we have a soul contract to ground things here on Earth. So when Neptune goes retrograde, it's a great opportunity during this 6 month period of time, because the rose-colored glasses are lifted. The veil has been lifted, if you will. It's not quite so like woo dreamy, but then things become more clear when retrograde of Neptune happens, so that you can actually take those ideas of enlightenment and imagination and creativity and put it into active form during this time. So if you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you are like a film director, or if you have divine inspiration, it's a great time to channel that energy into something tangible and put it into being. So let's see. Yeah, my friend Colin Bedell is a wonderful astrologer, and he wrote a little bit of astrology. So I always like to check his notes, and he says, I just love the way that he writes things. He says, where do our creative impulses come from? The ancients argued the divine muses, and I agree. I think that we are all visited by Neptune's muses in the form of images, sounds, feelings, and aha moments. So its placements remind you that through your creativities, though your creativity is informed by some otherworldly intelligence, so like the energies that we're receiving from Neptune, it is meant to be of tangible service in the physical world. So as humans, we're spiritual beings in a human body, and as part of our soul contract, we can be as spiritual as we want, as enlightened as we want, but we have to channel that energy and insight and information and make it based in reality here on Earth, because we are earthly beings. So that is the gift of Neptune, but also the challenge of Neptune, because you can't allow it to blur the lines of what's based in reality. So one of the cautionary tales about it is you can't be so dreamy and utopian about concepts that it lacks reality in day-to-day life. So when I was talking about the downside extra potential that is lent and associated with Neptune, is sometimes if a person or a collective is too dreamy or too utopian or too idealistic or too if it's not based in reality, there can be a propensity to escapism as well as addictions. So if you think about opioids and the problems that we're having in society with opioids, that very much is a numbing agent where people just kind of numb reality and go into an altered state. But it's not based in reality. It's not sustainable. So escapism is fine for a moment. What can you say? Pisces are dreamers. Yeah, Pisces are dreamers, and we need the dreamers. We need the artistic creators. But again, one of the challenges that Pisces and Neptunian energy is to find the balance of having those dreams and the visions and the artistic perspective, but then how is it also based in reality? And I think that's part of one's life work, right? And understanding the energy is how you harness the energy and how you make it work for you. So this article was interesting. I always go to all different sources, so I hope you don't mind me checking my notes. But this article was interesting because it talks about when Neptune goes retrograde, which we're in now until the end of the year. So I like how they positioned it. It says Neptune goes retrograde every year for about half a year. So Neptune is the planet of illusion, dreams, and fantasies. And when it goes retrograde, it loses its power, meaning that any mirage the planet had in front of us will disintegrate, leaving us with less brain fog, and more clarity for the rest of the year. So that's a good thing, right? So it gives us an opportunity to shift our perspective. It's a powerful time to get real and to reflect on your dreams for the future and shift from daydreaming to taking inspired action. So I love that. Maybe it helps that your Neptune is in Capricorn. Okay, good. We're going to talk about that. So with this retrograde, it says our visions will be a little bit more clear now because Neptune blurs things. It blurs the lines and makes things very dreamy. So as this lifts and things go retrograde, it becomes a little more clear and we'll be able to make better, more informed decisions and decipher what is rooted in reality from what is a pipe dream. So, I think that is the key to being able to make progress. Really to be able to identify like where adjustments can be made, like if we have a big plan, how about labor? I'm going to talk about all of that right now. So I wanted to talk about the broad vision of what it is and what it rules, which I think I covered. And now I can go into the different, okay. So because it affects a generation, and I'll start with what we are in now, which is Neptune being in Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. So we're all affected by that energy. But what it means in your natal chart, so it's a little bit less impactful because it affects a whole generation, but it's very impactful if you have it in a specific angle. So if Neptune is in your first house, your fourth house, your seventh house, and your 10th house, it may have more prominent impact on your particular psyche. So for me, I have Neptune in Sagittarius, but it's in my first house, which is my sense of self. So when I realized that and I started peeling the onion back, I was like, you know what? Ever since I'm a little girl, I've had a propensity towards mysticism and metaphysics and all of these types of interests. And I've also had gifts like claircognizance that I never really understood. But I find it very interesting that Neptune is in my first house, which is my sense of self, and Sagittarius, which is all about higher learning, spirituality, as well as travel. So I think that is a core part of who I am, and it explains a lot that I didn't even understand. So we're learning together. So also, if Neptune sits closely on one of your other planets, like if it's conjunct Neptune and Capricorn in the 5th house. Okay, we'll talk about that. So if Neptune is conjunct or very close to like your sun or your moon or your ascendant, all of those will have a significant impact and influence by Neptune as well. And if you have multiple placements in Pisces, like my friend that's normally here, she has heavy Pisces in her chart, then Neptune you'll feel more prominently. All right, so Neptune in the signs. Neptune's position by the signs, it describes the ways your generation is most idealistic and also most unrealistic. So its position in your specific horoscope, like in your natal chart, represents an area of imagination, of idealism, as well as spirituality on the positive side. And then the negative side, or the potential downside of it, is aimless drifting, confusion, and deception. So that's something that you have to evaluate for your own self as it relates to your houses. So I'm going to start with Pisces this time. Normally I start with Aries, but I'm going to start with Pisces right now because Neptune is in Pisces. So it's the current energy for the collective. So Neptune in Pisces is all these babies that are being born now. So from 2012 until 2026, this is the generation of Neptune and Pisces babies. So you have the typical traits of Pisces. So it's amplified because it's in its natural house, because Neptune rules Pisces. So you have the typical traits of Pisces amplified. You're psychic, generous, creative, empathic, mystical, sometimes gullible. Again, you have to be careful of that, that dreamy state. Possibly self-destructive. Watch out for that escapism. A lover of fantasy and film. You are an aficionado of complex or aesthetically pared down music. You're a daydream believer and a likely candidate for all manner of addictions. So again, Neptune and Pisces, it's very dreamy. So if things get too heavy in reality or like too staid, then there's a desire to want to escape that, because Pisces doesn't like to be kept in. It's the fish that wants to flow. So keep in mind, Neptune is anything that's in flow. So Sigmund Freud, Johann Sebastian Bach, Vincent van Gogh, and Theodore Roosevelt all had this placement of Neptune and Pisces during the last time, 165 years ago. So the next Neptune and Pisces generation should be interesting to watch. Yes, so as they grow, it's going to be very interesting to see how these traits impact and inspire them. I mean, these are the creators and the artists and the dreamers. And, you know, it reminds me of the song The Rainbow Connection of, you know, the Muppets. So, you know, the dreamers, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. So I think that song is very, very Neptune and Pisces. It's very idealistic and dreamy. So then after 2026, it's going to shift in the whole new astrological zodiac chart again. So then the next sign is, that's you. You're so sweet. I love that you're relating. So Neptune in Aries is going to be the next sign after Pisces, because the zodiac cycle is complete and then a new cycle begins. So Neptune in Aries comes after Neptune in Pisces. But also the people that were born from 1861 to 1875 experience Neptune in Aries. So Aries is a fire sign, and it's the fire starter. So it's a cardinal fire sign. So they tend to like take action first and then think later. So add Neptune to that. So members of this generation had an intuitive sense of self, and they took an active approach in their spiritual life. Remember, like, they're quick to act. So if spirituality is associated with Neptune, they were very quick to adopt that. But because they think later, they can be wildly inconsiderate. And then they can also be very aggressive. Sometimes they were a little reckless. So, this was interesting. There is one very significant person from this generation that transformed the nature of conflict. So Aries is known to be very aggressive. So Neptune, being dreamy and revolutionary, and like, not revolutionary, that's not the best word, but dreamy and thinking about things differently, was Mahatma Gandhi. So he was the prophet of nonviolence. So he actually used that energy of Neptune in Aries, which is like the aggressor, fire starter, go, go, go. But he used Neptune to make it more compassionate on behalf of a generation. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Following Aries is Taurus. So the last time Neptune was in Taurus was 1875 to 1889. So I won't spend too much time on it because it's so long ago, but we will be cycling back. Remember, every 14 years, it changes sign. So Taurus is an earth sign ruled by Venus. So it's very opulent. It likes creature comforts of material, tangible assets. So, and art and beauty and food. So people born with this placement love art, soft textures, rich food, real estate, and nature, the beauties of nature, all of the sensual comforts. So you take that dreamy energy paired with earthly, earthly comforts. So they really like to be like, go with the flow. I think it's very like beatnik. But when it came to practical stuff, the Neptune complicated the practical aspects of the materialism, which Taurus is usually pretty good at. So again, this blurs the lines and makes it a little bit more dreamy or confused. So Isadora Duncan is from this generation. She's an amazing dancer. Virginia Woolf and Albert Einstein were all of this generation. So Neptune returns back to Taurus in the year of 2039. So we have plenty of time still. But it's interesting. So once you become familiar with like the traits of the signs and then how Neptune impacts it, then you can start forming your own understanding of like how this comes together, right?
Hello.
Hi, Dina's joining us.
Hello.
say hi to everyone. She just taught a crystal healing certification class today.
Yep.
All right. So then the next sign in the zodiac wheel is Neptune in Gemini. So the years that was happening, that Neptune was last in Gemini, was 1889 to 1902. So the turn of the century and the turn of the millennium. So people born during this time, it was the Gilded Age. So Gemini is communication and intellect. So Neptune, Albert Einstein was also a Pisces. So that's double whammy. There you go. So I didn't know he was a Pisces. That's pretty cool. So the Gilded Age. A lot of the generation had subtle, clever, complicated minds, along with like a lot of literary greats. So, and also a tendency to be shallow, and they have a vast capacity for spin, which is true because it's all about communication. And Geminis can be very glib or very sarcastic or very quick, but then Neptune makes it like dreamy and imaginative. So think about like over the top, like Gatsby. I mean, that was 20s, but still, I mean, Gilded Age. They idealized education and they admired intellect. But then things being based in truth can be challenged because, you know, if you deceive, then you also tend to be deceived. So those blurred lines is part of like the downside of Neptune in Gemini. Okay, so Neptune in Cancer. Cancer is very... it's very nurturing. It's very home-based. So Neptune in Cancer was 1902 to 1915. So the quote here, it says, "What a wonderful world," sung by Louis Armstrong. He was born with this placement. So these folks tend to be observant, receptive, and sentimental. So those are very associated traits with Cancer. So they have an old-fashioned virtues of home, family, and country. So it's romanticizing the past and being very nostalgic about it. But again, is that based in reality? So, you know, there was a lot of great events. There was a lot of awful events at that time. They like security and they rely on family. They like to be protected and feel safe and secure. That's very Cancerian. But again, it's like Neptune brings that dreamy disillusionment. So there's a lot of like, they want that feeling of security, but things might be blurred during that generation. So Neptune in Leo is the next sign. Neptune in Leo is represented by the generation born between 1915 to 1929. So this is definitely Gatsby. So Neptune and Leo. Leo is the lion. It's big, it's bold, it's courageous, it's verbose, it's like larger than life. Look at me, rules by the sun. And then Neptune adding the artistry and the imagination and like, it's just big. So you like to take big risks, you like to go big, you're extravagant, artistic, romantic, or the goal is to be all of those things. There definitely was an idealization of love and children and creative process, but the downside of that, like think about Gatsby and all those crazy parties and all the crazy over-the-top mansions and you know, like the whole era. So there's a propensity to be prone to infatuation and lack of facing reality. So preferring like the glitz and glitter instead of like waking up with the hangover and having to go to work, you know. So reality is like they chased an ideal, but then the reality was like things have to really still happen. Not everything, life is not always just a big party. So there's the escapism. And it's a big dichotomy there, the contrast between the two in that case. So Neptune and Virgo. So Neptune likes to blur the lines, and Virgo likes to be meticulous and stay within the lines. So they did not jive well. 1929 to 1942. So part of the challenge for the folks born during this time is Virgos can get very caught up in detail. The challenge is what details are important and what are not. Don't get caught up in the minutia, and don't sweat the small stuff that doesn't have any impact. And you can become like a hypochondriac, and overreact over things that are not really important in the grand scheme of things, of getting things done. So, this is good advice. Work that taps the imagination as well as spiritual activities. So that can bring great joy. So as long as Neptune and Virgo, if you're doing things that bring you great joy, that are like focused on those types of themes that are very Neptunian, that's a good pairing there. Okay, Neptune in Libra is represented by folks that were born 1942 to 1957. So these folks tend to be idealistic and compassionate, and they long for tranquility, balance, and love. So again, Libra is a sign, it's an air sign that rules thought process and communication, but particularly as it relates to you plus others. So that could be romantic relationships or business relationships or familial relationships. It's you interacting with other people. So Neptune really can blur the lines and make that challenging. So it's mystifying for you, and you have high ideals about like marriage, but then if you idealize something so much, which Neptune in Libra does idealize it, when reality doesn't pan out that way, it can cause a lot of tension and a lot of problems. So that is a challenge for folks born at that time. It says you can definitely expect to experience great shifts in the rule of human relationships over the course of your life. And I think that's definitely true. So starting 1942 to 1957, shortly thereafter, I mean, these are the people that were born during that time. So in terms of Neptune shifting how people think about relationships, romantic and otherwise, let's look at all of the significant change since the 1950s in terms of same-sex marriages and how we talk about gender and how we talk about the concept of family and what that means. Keep in mind, back in the 50s, like, families were very traditional in structure, and now there's much more acceptance and societal like understanding of different types of family structures and different types of relationships. And I think that there's been significant change since then. I think that I think a lot of that can be attributed to it. If you think about throughout one's lifetime of that generation as they grow, and then all of the people that they impact. So now you start seeing how astrology comes into reality. And not to say that the other signs weren't. It's just, you know, in terms of all of you watching, I would imagine we're getting closer from 1950s up to present day. But our parents, our grandparents, this is all applicable. The next sign is Neptune in Scorpio. And Scorpio is an emotional water sign that goes deep. So they already like mystery and intrigue and things that are hidden beneath the surface. And then Neptune is all thing about like dreams and imagination and mystery. So there's a natural propensity for these folks to be fascinated by the workings of the psyche, like Carl Jung and all different archetypes and stuff. So a detective of the spirit, you project an aura of magnetic intensity, and you instinctively understand the concept of sexual healing. But this sign in particular, Neptune, with the propensity for escapism, and Scorpio going so deep and feeling so deep, since you're also prone to sexual extremes and self-destructive behavior, you may be unable to recognize the sources of your own pain. So just be careful. 1957 and 1970, there is a heightened propensity for escapism of reality, especially with like addiction or just struggling with reality here. So, no, it's cool. So then Neptune in Sagittarius, folks that were born from 1970 to 1984. I fall within this category. I know some of you guys do too. This is in my first house. So you can look at where it sits in your houses and your natal chart and see like what that will have impact on by understanding what the house rules. So the first house for me is my sense of self, because that's in my first house. So themes of Sagittarius: questions of philosophy, faith, and religious values intrigue you. So you find them easy to discuss, but difficult to resolve. On some level, dogma makes you uncomfortable because your belief system is constantly evolving. So Sagittarius is always like open-minded to learning new and learning more. And so there's a thirst for personal freedom, which is very Sagittarian, as well as travel, ideally to sacred spots. Like I love to go to Sedona. I would like to go to India. I would like to go to Nepal. Like it's just, I don't know why, but I do. Probably because of Neptune and Sagittarius. But one thing you have to be careful of, Sagittarius, is that whole like utopian idealism. You can also fall and tend to be gullible and easily misled. So again, be cautious by anybody that wants to be your guru, anyone that's like, oh, I'll teach you. Like, don't idealize somebody too much. It has to be based in reality. So you can't live in a dream world. You have to live in this earth that we incarnated in. Okay, the next sign is Neptune in Capricorn. I know one of you just said that you have Neptune in Capricorn. That's people born from 1984 to 1998. So these folks tend to be ambitious, pragmatic, and nostalgic about old-fashioned values of the past, or the past as you imagine it. George Ellie, there you go. So the past as you imagine it. It doesn't mean it was like that. You might just be idealizing it or romanticizing it because you think it might be. Like, this reminds me of that show All in the Family, with that old curmudgeon who's like, those were the days. It doesn't mean it was always so good, but you might romanticize it. So in typical Capricorn fashion, you long for success and you idealize the world of business, but then you might have trouble acknowledging the problems that you experience there. So again, it can't all just be dreamy, like I'm going to be a successful multimillionaire entrepreneur, if you're not willing to work through the actual problems of the business that you're doing. You have to put in the work. Vagueness and uncertainty make you uneasy, and you have to watch out for a tendency to overreact or becoming authoritarian. So your spiritual longings are best satisfied with structural organization. So Capricorn likes structure. So Neptune is very dreamy, is very idealistic, is very elated, but Capricorn needs like the structure and groundedness of material, like actual things and work. So hopefully that's helpful insight for you. The next sign is Neptune in Aquarius. So Aquarius is very forward-minded. It's an air sign. It tends to think on behalf of the collective. So they go hand in hand, Neptune and Aquarius. So that's the folks born from 1999 to 98 to 2012. So enlightenment-seeking, technologically gifted, and altruistic people are Aquarians. That's very Aquarius. Oh, I'm glad that resonates with you, George Ellie. So there is an intuitive sense for the common good and social and progressive social reform. That definitely is very Aquarian. And then Neptune is like the dreamy big picture of that. But again, how is it based in reality? So you may idealize your friends and desire to live in a utopian community with like mutually sympathetic, like spiritually minded, ecologically aware individuals. So like you can say, we're all just gonna live in a big compound, and everybody's gonna share everything that they have, and everybody's gonna care for everybody, and you know, we won't need money anymore, and everybody's just gonna get along all the time because we all think alike. But then like the reality of doing that, it's like, there are some things that definitely need to be grounded in the reality of human nature, as well as like economics and the society that we live in. So they're beautiful thoughts, and that definitely leads to progressive change. But how does that fit in the real world to use those inspired thoughts and dreams and imagination grounded into reality? Which brings us back to Neptune and Pisces, which is the last sign, which we talked about. But folks, from 2012 to 2026. So I won't repeat all of that again, but it's like, it's definitely a very high-minded in terms of spirituality, psychic gifts, generous, creative, mystical, fantasy. I think we do see that currently in society. So let's see, Neptune in the first, I'll go through really quick the different houses, because I know some of you said like which houses yours is in. So Neptune in the first house, which is where mine is, Neptune and Sagittarius in the first house. So if you have that in your natal chart, the first house, you may be impressionable, dreamy and fluid. So your intuition is definitely acute. Let's see. You definitely can confuse and fascinate people. They aren't necessarily sure who you are or what you're up to because your identity may shift. That's the Neptune, like nebulous. It's very nebulous. Like it's a little bit blurry, and people are like, I can't quite figure it out. Like there's something. Oftentimes these folks will have musical or artistic abilities, which are associated with Neptune. So Neptune in the second house rules money. So if your Neptune's in the second house, you may have an intuitive sense of how to make money, and you may even make money through spiritual pursuits, which is great. But be careful that you also have the propensity that you may be defrauded by things not being based in reality and people taking advantage of you if you're gullible. So you have to really be grounded and work extra hard to focus on the mechanics of saving money and keeping your financial affairs in order. So the recommendation for that is to hire somebody. If you lack those skills, hire somebody that has a solid earth sign, probably like a Capricorn or somebody that's very good with the money, to do that for you. Somebody that you trust, that's not going to defraud you. Neptune in the third house, that rules communication. So you may be impressionable, imaginative, and highly sensitive to language because it's all about communication. You are very persuasive, but also equally distracted. You definitely like wax poetic. So people are drawn to you. You have knowledge and you're very poetic, but you may be gullible, and your siblings definitely know how to fool you and like to play tricks on you. So because that also is ruled by your siblings. So that third house. So they often fool you. The fourth house, which is the house that rules the home. Members of your family are very like unusual or unorthodox maybe. Again, with that nebulous influence, you're heavily influenced by your familial unit. So you may find it hard to separate you from them. and to delineate those lines, because everything's blurred lines. Like that Robin Thicke song, Blurred Lines, keeps playing, because that's very much the theme of Neptune. At the 4th house, that's also like the base foundation of who you are, so you may have inherent psychic abilities if Neptune is in your 4th house. Neptune in the 5th house, this is all about like creativity and fun, and children. So that's what the 5th house rules. So artistic and sensitive, but again, this is 5th house. Here you go. So the 5th house rules your creativity and fun, as well as children. So you're very artistic and you're very sensitive, but you may struggle with how to focus that creativity. Because again, like the focus part is what Neptune makes fuzzy for you. So as it relates to like your romantic life, because that is also part of the 5th house, is your romantic life. You may have some like friends with benefits or like secret affairs, which is that blurring of the lines of Neptune. Not saying you do, just saying the energy's there. You're drawn to people that mystify you. That's very attractive for you with the Neptune being there. Your children are likely to be impressionable and gentle, and you have a very strong psychic bond with them. Neptune in the 6th house. So 6th house is all about like your wellness and your routines, your daily routines. So let's see, you tend to get caught in the web of office politics and the physical aspect of your regular jobs. So like the stupid details. So that's a sign ruled by Virgo too. So Neptune, like don't get caught up in the stupid details that make you want to escape out of there, because you can get caught up in the minutia. So if your Neptune is in the 6th house, things like film, music, fashion, anything related to the sea, pharmacology, all of these can be very good fields for you because you have a natural propensity for that energetically. You also are open-minded or differently minded about your health and wellness. So that may include holistic remedies or Eastern medicine remedies, like not necessarily like traditional pharmacology of like take your pill, go to the doctor, like traditional Western ways. And sometimes if Neptune's in your 5th house, there may be some diagnoses that are a little bit like confusing and maybe not easy to diagnose. So like that's where things such as Reiki and acupuncture and intuitive healing styles, like working with shamans, eating herbs and remedies, like all of that stuff. If Neptune's in your 6th house, you may find yourself more naturally inclined to those types of things as part of your overall regimen. Neptune in the 7th house. So this is all about you plus others, right? This is the house ruled by Venus traditionally, the 7th house. So it's all relationship house. So Neptune, moody people and artistic souls attract you. And, you know, being a Libra sun, I can relate to that. So Neptune draws that. So you seek your spiritual soulmate, but in your confusion about relationships, you may sacrifice yourself to an image or an ideal that has nothing to do with your actual partner. So don't idealize somebody for who you think they may be. See them for who they are. Like it needs to be based in realism, especially if you're going to be in a relationship with them. Any type of relationship with them. Don't idealize the potential of what you think somebody should be or may be. Look at them truly for what's reality. Okay? If Neptune is in your 8th house, that is all about birth, death, and rebirth and transformation and other people's money and inheritances. It's also like one of the more spiritual houses. So seances, Ouija boards, which I don't ever suggest using a Ouija board, more like occult studies is associated with the 8th house. extrasensory perceptions, and all forms of communication with spirit attract you. Okay, so oftentimes you'll experience sex as a spiritual exercise too. So maybe tantric, maybe right up your alley. But let's see, you may trust your instincts too much, especially when it comes to money and your partners. So be careful of business partnerships, and because it's other people's money ruled by the 8th house. So Neptune can blur those lines and can create some deception. So beware, be extra cautious of that. The 8th house is ruled by like sex, personal transformation, and after death things, which includes inheritances. So be careful you don't get defrauded or taken advantage of. Like double check everything. Neptune in the 9th house, that's all about like higher learning and travel and spirituality. So mystical religions and spiritual journeys are right up your alley. You want desperately to identify with a specific spiritual path, but that's not going to happen because Neptune blurs the lines. But I think that that's beautiful because this is something that I've always done. I'm a Sagittarius rising, but Neptune in the 9th house, which is that house that associates with like higher learning, authority, different religions, different cultures, it's like a melting pot. So that blurring of Neptune and the blending and the idealism, I think that can be really, really beautiful. And you're a sensitive teacher too, because that, teaching as part of the 9th house matters. So Neptune can be very creative and artistic if it's in the 9th house. Okay, 10th house, this is all about your success house, your professional success house. So choose a profession that taps into your tuition and you will be highly successful by doing so. So if you just choose a profession because it's practical, that is not going to serve you well if Neptune is in the 10th house. So 2 potential career problems you might face. You might tend to drift and you may tend to not assert yourself because again, Neptune is Piscean and it's very like go with the flow. So if you want to find success, you have to be more assertive. Hi, Mama.
Hi.
That's Bella.
Hi guys. Hello, Instagram Livey.
Yes, she's a Pisces.
Oh, I'm a true Pisces.
Yes,
too.
she's a true Pisces. So, so as it relates to success and business, follow your intuition because you are that dreamer and the idealist. Like you may have an idea that nobody's even thought of yet. And if you're true to yourself, I always tell my kids, like, if you really dive deep into whatever your passion is, like if you really find yourself fascinated by mushrooms and you geek out and you become an absolute expert in mushrooms and you gain a wealth of knowledge, but you go deep with tangible work and knowledge and expertise, then the money will follow. Okay? Because the people will come to you for being an expert in that field. When Dina and I opened this shop, they're like, wait a minute, you're gonna sell rocks? And I'm like, yep, watch me. And they were like, okay, good luck. And they were like laughing. But because we were experts and because it's an embodiment of who we are and what we do, we are experts in our field and we continue to grow and it doesn't even feel like work because it's innate to our intuition and who we are and what we do that people come to us because we are experts and the rest follows. So that's very Neptune in 10th house, okay? Neptune in the 11th house. The 11th house rules social gatherings and like your social status and your friendship groups and organizations you're involved in. So again, the blurriness of Neptune and the go with the flow of Neptune. You have shifting ideals and vague aspirations along with a large collection of inspiring, talented friends. Some who may have drug and alcohol problems. It's just a Neptunian theme that you have to be aware of. So, also watch out for the idealism. Unfortunately, you tend to see what you want to see in your friends, not necessarily what is the reality of your friends. So just be careful that you don't get deceived. What? Okay, so the thing is, 11th house matters is friendship groups. Okay? So friendship groups, Neptunian themes may bring addiction because there's a desire for escapism and to like numb from reality. So you have to be careful. When I talk about these things, I talk about the positive attributes, but also the potential downfall attributes of what you have to be aware of. So you have to be careful of escapism if Neptune is in the 11th house, because you don't want to find yourself in like groups that are going to lead you down the darker paths of Neptune. You want the enlightened spiritual groups or the artistic groups or the creative dreamers who are very inspiring, like artistry, creativity. That's very Neptunian. But then the dark side of Neptune can be like the escapism of numbing. So it's just, listen, there's positive light and then there's negative dark. So it's yin yang for everything. Every sign has it. Every person has it. It's all about your choices in life, of free will. Okay, and then Neptune in the 12th house, if you have Neptune in the 12th house is one of the most spiritual houses. It is already steeped with empathy, feeling other people's energy, going deep. You're probably psychic. You're contemplative, likely reclusive, because the 12th house people, it's more subtle, and what goes below, they're not necessarily like extroverts. So if Neptune's in your 12th house, you tend to probably like to be a dreamer and keep secrets, fascinate you. You feel so much of other people, and you like bleed for society. So you have to harness that energy, and your creative efforts are probably best accomplished in private. And solitude is necessary for your peace of mind because you feel so much and you're so empathetic. And Neptune's so dreamy and so watery, which rules your emotions. Oftentimes you need to regroup in private just to like restore your energy. So it's like a double whammy of, it's like that Piscean energy. Neptune, if it's in the 12th house, you feel everything very, very deeply. And yeah. But you're probably very attuned psychically. So you have to work extra hard to like ground it. Because when we were born, we made an agreement to live here in the solid earth. So we got to take those spiritual gifts and bring it down here. So that's when Neptune goes into retrograde, we put our gifts into action to implement here in reality for everyone. So it's a lot of information and a lot of talking. I hope it makes sense. I hope it resonates with you. Feel free to watch it again. I'm going to have this posted in a few different social media places. And you can watch it again. And let me know if you have any questions. Next week, we're going to be talking about one of my favorites, which is Pluto. So Sunday at 4:30 next week is going to be Pluto. And yeah, I hope this was helpful information for you. So, oh good, I'm so glad. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. All right, bye guys.